Lehi and, their families,
Uh-huh.
they were carnivores for 8 years.
Okay.
Vegetables don't have the same nutritional value that they did even a generation ago. Our food supply is on very, very shaky ground right now.
It's always famine somewhere. We're a global church now, right?
Yeah, we are.
Code. It's to help us be healthier.
But what about the parasites, bro? We did a whole
What
video
about
on
the
that, man. You don't get parasites from freaking, what's that green crap? Kale? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Midnight Strike Through Mormons, the show formerly known as Midnight Mormons. I'm your host, Cardinellis, and today I'm joined by Physiognomy Dan. Speed Read Dan, you're looking really ripped there, Dan.
Appreciate it.
Because, are you doing keto? You doing low carb?
Yeah, I've done a lot of low carb, a lot of meat-based diets.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start with this. The things that I get involved in, keto, for or against the word of wisdom. Okay, so you've got thoughts on keto and the word of wisdom. Hit it, Dan.
Great. So there's a scripture that talks about in the word of wisdom how you should only eat meat sparingly or in times of winter or in times of famine.
Yeah, and Elders Quorum President Jordan Peterson famously went on an all-meat diet, which is the exact opposite.
Correct.
And supposedly did really, really well. Okay.
So here's the reality. I actually believe that we're going through a famine right now.
Famine?
Not a literal food, but a famine of nutrition, where what's happened to our soils, what's happened to our vegetables and our fruit is there's no nutritional value anymore in the food.
Okay.
And people are dying, of sickness, of either cancer or, there's a number of other diseases going on.
Okay.
And it's not the typical famine where people are super skinny. It's a famine where everyone is, obese and overweight.
Okay, so what does this have to do with keto and being for or against the word of wisdom?
Well, some people are going to say that, the word of wisdom encourages a vegan diet, but that's not exactly true because means meat.
Wait, do you really think that the word of wisdom encourages a vegan diet?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so at all because there is a scripture where it talked about Anne Lee.
Is that just progmos who've lost their real religion?
Have lost their real religion.
One?
That's right.
Okay.
Because it talks about early in the DNC, it talks about Anne Lee, with the Quakers, how she's wrong because she said abstain from meat. And then what it's actually talking about, that's talking about the flesh of beasts. So it's not even being it's not even being vegan or vegetarian in the word of wisdom because that's excluding the use of eggs, dairy, or even fish.
Yeah, and some people I know vegan. For example, I've known a lot of vegan but this is Los Angeles, all right. So there's vegan pizza stores on every corner. There's vegan this, vegan that, vegan options. I think there's vegan toilet paper in half of these places that I go to, and apparently they're not a monolith. There's pro honey vegans and anti honey vegans.
Yeah, well, there's some
because
people
they don't
who
know
are
whether it's an animal byproduct.
Yeah, there's some vegans out there they won't eat certain fruits or pomegranates or other things because they're was an insect involved in the process? And I'm like, oh, really? So one of the things that I want to stress again is that Nephi, Lehi and their families, they were carnivores for 8 years. It says that.
They were carnivores
for
8 years?
Yes, they were carnivores. They only ate raw meat.
That's sushivore.
It
right?
says they did not. Yeah, it says that they did not light any fires. That the Lord did sweeten their meat, and it also said that their women became strong like the men.
And it wasn't just the hormones they're putting.
Yes,
in the,
and it also says that the women were able to give lots of breast milk to their babies.
That's true.
So they really had boba,
boba.
So in the Book of Mormon, why did Arnold Freeberg draw Nephi as super swollen stuff? And there's a reason. He was a carnivore.
Okay, so are you saying we get the word of wisdom wrong?
Well, no, I'm just saying the situation has changed now because vegetables don't have the same nutritional value that they did even a generation ago because of genetically modified organisms.
Okay, so you think that right now the famine of nutrients in all of our mass-produced crops, okay, is a modern famine.
Yes.
And that famine is not as present in mass-produced meat. So we should
Yes.
eat more meat.
Yes, I'm not saying that we should be factory farmers. Like I actually I'm disgusted by factory farming, to be honest. So like,
Okay.
you know, like they pump a lot of hormones into chickens and stuff, and like, but I'm just believing that, you know, one of the
Because you're
healthiest
a real
things that you
soul
could eat
bra
is
guy, and he doesn't even want us to be eating any of those seed oils or anything. You know what I'm
so
saying?
yeah, I know, because those are actually machine engine like oil lubricants.
Okay. Well, what if we are the machine and we need to oil it up, baby?
No, but to be honest, like, you know, liver, you know, organ meats, you know, that they're what we've been eating for thousands and thousands of years. They're exactly what, like, you know, Nephi and his family ate.
Okay, so then I guess what this boils down to is everybody always wants to superimpose onto scripture their political or their personal ideologies. Okay. Are you being bold enough to claim that you think the word of wisdom endorses keto, or do you think that it's just incorrect?
As of probably the 1990s, I would say the word of wisdom, at least is applied to the United States and this, you know, world that we live in, really endorses keto because we live
what
in a
about that
famine.
whole eat meat sparingly thing?
Well, that's because, but we're in a famine now, so that's the exception.
Oh, so that's why you talk so much about the famine.
Yes.
Of nutrients in
Yes.
all of these plants.
Correct. But-
Oh, okay. So you're like backdooring the word of wisdom by saying that the word of wisdom says you should eat meat sparingly unless it's in times of famine.
Yes.
And the famine that we have right now is a famine of nutrients and genetically modified organisms that cannot be trusted. And, you know, I got to tell you, Kwaku all the time is quoting the last part of what's the word of wisdom in Doctrine and Covenants? What again?
89.
It's yeah, sorry. I totally should know that a lot better, but you know, I kind of botched that one. But if we go to DNC 89 and we look up the word of wisdom, the last phrase in the word of wisdom is really interesting. It's like, you know, when conspiring organizations plot your demise or so on and so forth.
Yeah. People like Bill Gates buying up all the farmland.
You know, oh, you're one of those guys.
Yeah,
too,
I'm one of those guys. Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, like them making like an insect, you know, manufacturing facility in Canada, so they feed us bugs and stuff.
Yeah, although I got to tell you, some of those cricket bars that I've bought at the gym, they're not so bad. So, and by the way, as a guy that worked in pest control for a really long time, I can tell you, if farmed in a sterile environment, 80% of the world eats insects, not us. Generally culturally in North America, but it would not be as far-fetched as you think it would. And go to a survivalist class and they'll tell you which parts to eat. So anyway, this is what Kwaku quotes oftentimes. And he says, in consequence, I'm going to put it right on the screen right here so the whole audience can see it. In consequence of evils and designs which do and will exist in the hearts of conspiring men in the last days, I have warned you and forewarn you by giving unto you this word of wisdom by revelation. So you think that there's
this is big tobacco, this is Bayer, this is Monsanto, this is, you know, big pharma, this is the entire conglomerate that is just focused on destroying our health. They want us to be as sick as possible for as long as possible so they can make as much money as possible. They want us to be addicted. It's, you know, a revenue stream for them.
Okay, and then this is your logical scriptural step here, okay, where it talks about having herbs in the season thereof and every fruit in the season thereof used in prudence and thanksgiving. Then it says, yea, flesh also of beasts and fowls of the air, I the Lord have ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly, which is the very famous phrase that we're all used to, quote, used sparingly. And it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used, which all the vegans on the opposite side of the bench as you are always quoting this part of the scripture and saying that we shouldn't be eating these birds, chicken, or these beasts, bovine flesh, okay? Only in times of winter or of cold or of famine. And they would come at you and say, hey, what famine are we in? We don't have a famine. We have crops that can be made in hectare with machines. Our food supply has never been more stable.
That's not true. That's not true. Our food supply is on very, very shaky ground right now.
Okay. So basically you're saying
Go to any grocery store, like in middle America, or a lot of places, like you're going to see a lot of things off the shelves right now.
Okay. So you're saying that the famine is in the nutrients and the quantity over quality argument of the food.
Correct. And pretty soon it's actually going to be, it's going to be quantity as well too.
Wow. So
That's why you should have your food storage.
And what do you store? Meat doesn't store very long.
Well, you can have a fridge, get a relationship with one of your local farmers,
chickens,
you're going to get like
chickens.
you could do an entire cow, and you're going to be able to eat like, the liver, the kidneys, the tongue, like all of the organs of the cow.
Okay. Awesome. Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Before we go, I'm going to admit one Brad Whitbeck into this conversation to see what he thinks about the word of wisdom endorsing or not endorsing the
keto diet,
the keto diet or the carnivore diet, because yes, it's quite a bold claim. But as you can see here, Brad, one Dan, Speed Read Dan, Physiognomy Dan, is getting, cut up and yoked, kind of like you when you're prepping for all of those Book of Mormon shows.
Sweet.
And he credits keto, which has also improved his health, and says that he thinks the famine in the land, that people are warned against in Doctrine and Covenants 89, that is the loophole and the reason that you're allowed to eat, fowls in the air and beasts and so on and so forth. It should usually only be used sparingly. He says the famine is the actual poor nutrients in the plentiful vegetables that isn't present in the meat. And
it's a famine of Monsanto's design.
Yes, is the famine of Monsanto's design. 100%.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. So what do you
I
think?
Even if that's not the case, it's always famine somewhere. We're a global church now, right?
Yeah, we are. We are. Like there's a famine in India or Africa someplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Mormonism, where we judge you for drinking coffee as we sit 40 pounds obese. You know what I'm saying? But how our bodies being temples and taking care of them and adhering to a physical code that is a manifestation of the spiritual code, it is important. Do you think, Brad Whitbeck, Apostle 2028, do you think...
I love that it keeps going further back.
Yeah.
I'm getting less and less.
It'll be 2027, depending on how you answer this question. Do you yourself think that the word of wisdom is maybe wrong and keto should be more considered for widespread use right now? Or do you think maybe Dan's loophole reasoning is correct and the famine is in the nutrients of all that Monsanto's garbage that we're eating? What do you think, bro?
I think that Dan's loophole reasoning is interesting and intriguing to me.
Okay.
And I think that there's a lot of things within the word of wisdom and the way that we approach it right now anyway, that makes me think keto should be fine if it's benefiting your health, right? Okay. The word of wisdom is there for our health. It's a health code. It's to help us be healthier.
But what about the parasites, bro? We did a whole video on that, man. You don't get parasites from freaking, what's that green crap? Kale? You don't get parasites from kale?
I think you don't. Yeah, you could easily get parasites from kale.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Really?
On the mission, like all of the more dangerous foods was always the vegetables. The meat was always much safer.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, man. As long as you've cooked the meat, you're good. But with vegetables, you can get parasites and stuff inside of some of them. Like it's
You're freaking me out, dog.
you can get them safe and it's fine. But I think that with the word of wisdom being a health code, you're even allowed to use things like drugs that are useful as long as you're using them as prescribed by a doctor, right? Like if you're talking to your bishop about it, if you're using speed, you shouldn't really say that you're following the word of wisdom.
It's
but if you're
speed,
on Ritalin but if you're on Adderall or Ritalin because you have it prescribed for your health, you're fine, right? So I see nothing wrong with going with a ketogenic diet because it's good for your health,
Oh, I think I just saw, we might have another podcast that we got to do because I saw a big scowl coming from Dan. Speed Read Dan.
Still, like, it's the idea of just because society says a drug is okay and should be prescribed doesn't mean that's good for you. Like
Dude.
Oh, I
I'm not
totally
I'm
agree.
not a fan of giving meth to kids.
I
All right.
used the wrong example, Dan. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
But I am using it as the example of even that's okay under the word of wisdom when it's being done for your health. You know,
That's funny.
the point of the word of wisdom is for our health. It's not. It reminds me of Christ saying like the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. I think the word of wisdom was made for man and not man for word of wisdom. You know.
All right, dude. So, I don't know now. I don't know how to take this podcast. I'm going to have to process it for a couple of days. I think it's interesting that the famine is the nutrients. You know,
Yeah.
that's
I'm intrigued by that, Dan. I like that a lot. I think that's really interesting because it's, I do think there's a real like dearth of energy among people.
There is.
And I think they're trying to figure out what it is. And I've seen a decent number of sources saying, hey, it is the food being malnourished.
Yeah, the food, like our grandparents, our great grandparents had much more nutritious, you know, apples, apricots, asparagus.
And they're finding
whatever.
tons of glyphosate in all of the urine samples that they're doing of everybody. And that's Roundup. And though it's not necessarily a carcinogen, as that one lawsuit suggested that was very famous, that was the takedown lawsuit of Monsanto's and everything. It's so abundant in so much human activity without us understanding what it does to you that it's eerie at best. You know what I'm saying? Potentially correlated to all kinds of problems at worst. You know what I'm saying? So something that, I think is definitely worth considering. So,
So actually on that, Carden, I read a study recently about glyphosate that was done by some Brits who were going through and testing it in rats to see what was going on with it. And what they found was it wasn't carcinogenic, but it was affecting the gut microbiome in ways they didn't completely understand yet.
Oh, yeah, because think about it. If it's a weed killer, you know what I'm saying? If it literally stops the growth of plant life, we've known for years people that compost. You can't take your yard clippings if you sprayed Roundup on your yard clippings. You can't take your yard clippings and put them in your compost pile, or else you just destroy the microbiome of the compost.
Oh, interesting.
So, you totally screw up your compost pile. Dude, did I just out hippie everybody here? Wow, usually you guys are.
You live in California, bro.
Oh, that's
you should
true.
out hippie us.
Yeah, we put hippie in the water. Other places, they put fluoride in the water. We just put hippie. You know, so anyway, you can't use in your compost pile, you can't use yard clippings that have had Roundup in it, or else it just completely screws up the microbiome. So this is really interesting. My only pushback to that, though, Dan, is that if we had to feed ourselves off of more meat, as you said, Nephi's family did in the wilderness, where they ate meat that was sweetened by the Lord and was uncooked and so on and so forth. I don't see that being possible on a widespread scale. There's people
it's not, but Nephi and his family, like, they were chosen.
Oh,
yeah, they were chosen by the Lord to do something different.
So
and go
once
out into
we
the
get
wilderness.
shredded like Brad Whitbeck and Physiognomy Dan, will that be the mark? Will that be the mark?
Yes, it'll
of
be
God's
the mark
chosen?
of God's chosen.
Is the
that we're gonna
washboard
be,
abs?
Yes.
Yes, that's why Nephi was so large in stature, right? But at the same time, we do have the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel, right? Where they refuse the king's meat and eat pulse instead in the Old Testament, right? Which pulse meaning mostly lentils and beans, right?
Yeah.
I do think the king's meat specifically is referring to more like sacrificial food than it is just meat itself.
It could have been it could have been non-kosher.
Well, and
yeah.
One of the most ripped guys I know, one of the biggest health gurus that I know. It's actually kind of funny. He was like raised Mormon at a very young age, like maybe at 10 or 11, they left for Australia and they kind of went inactive there. But he's expressed interest in coming back to church since coming back to America. I spoke with him. He's a mutual friend of a friend, and he is huge on Pulse. He's huge on it, and he's like really into the word of wisdom, and he's like really into biblical food sources, and like is totally down with Pulse and is studying Pulse, and he literally believes it's like the original gangster of superfoods. And so he pushes Pulse on his clientele and his following.
It irritates my stomach. Like I had a few beans earlier, and it's starting to give me a little bit of a stomach ache. So,
oh yeah, especially if you're going from keto into beans, like the amount of fiber in your gut is going to be different, so it's going to be weird. So yeah, I think there are different ways that we can adapt our diets to fit the word of wisdom. And I think as long as we're praying about it and trying to do what's going to be healthiest for us, we're going to be fine. You know, like I can't think of a way that we could like honestly screw ourselves up too bad if we're like really trying to think about what's going to be healthy. Like obviously we could do something dumb like, oh yeah, I'm just going to eat.
So this
all
is
the garbage
another
I want
random
and call it
comment,
fine.
Brad. I think it was John Widsoe or something, but there was some early 20th century apostle that made some comment about refined flour or refined sugar that he said it should be against the word of wisdom.
Really?
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because it probably should be.
It probably should be.
Wait, why should it be? Why should it be?
Well, I'm just thinking
refined
about, like,
sugar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a major inflammant on you. It's really, really bad for your health. It's super addictive.
Really?
Oh yeah. Sugar is like harder to quit than cocaine, right?
Oh, dude. Really?
Have you not heard that?
I've heard.
Yeah. Think about like all the Mormon moms addicted to So Delicious and Swig in Utah.
Ooh.
It's true. It's true.
And high fructose corn syrup, man. I don't know if this is me being a hippie, but I don't touch that stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, high fructose corn syrup's bad, dude.
It's really bad for you.
Oh my gosh, dude.
It's what they use to fatten up cattle.
Well, no, that's just corn.
What?
That's just corn, right?
Well, that's
That
the
too.
sugar from the corn. Like that makes it even worse. Like it's highly processed.
Oh, jeez, man. Now I'm getting all freaked out, dog.
Yeah.
No,
That kind of stuff gives people cancer.
Oh, just great. Thanks.
and I mean, like, look at the obesity rates in America versus other countries.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you
Like,
look at
here's
Mexican
the thing,
soda
people-
or Canadian soda, it's got
Just cane
sugar instead of high fructose
like
corn
one
syrup.
of the things that happens is people literally leave the United States or go to the United States, but like in foreign countries, you could have the same exact lifestyle and you will lose weight.
Yeah, dude, I lost a ton of weight in New York, though. Tons of weight. I couldn't freaking gain weight when I was in New York, and it was all the walking. Because even after,
it's probably the walking.
But part of it is
you just had
walking,
to
but like
walk,
people
yeah.
have like people with gluten sensitivity issues in the United States go to Europe and all of a sudden like they could eat bread.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and I've wondered about that because, Dan, this is something that happened to me when I was a kid. I used to think I was allergic to apple skins.
Really?
Because, when I would eat apples, the peel, if it touched my gums would hurt really bad and like get inflamed. And then I realized I wasn't washing them before I was eating them. And so I wonder if there's just like pesticides just sitting on there.
Yeah.
Oh,
totally wrecking my mouth and like making me feel like I was allergic to these things when really it was something in I like obviously I should have been washing them. But
Yeah.
like, I wonder how much of it we still get even when we do wash our fruits and vegetables and things like that.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, cool. Sick. Well, everybody let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think that keto is the new word of wisdom? Do you think the vegans were wrong? That that all of Brad's friends are actually experiencing a famine of nutrients, and that we should do the Jordan Peterson route and go all carnivore, or
Beef only.
Yeah, that'd be pretty hardcore. I don't know, but I'm going to be thinking about that. This is Midnight Mormons, Midnight Strike Through Mormons, the show formerly known as Midnight Mormons. See you guys in the next program.